Hey, Pastor and board member, glad to have you back in this module on the identification, recruiting, and deployment of board members. And in the first three episodes, we have done just exactly that. We've talked about identification, we've talked about recruiting, we've talked about deploying board members. So in this episode, we're going to kind of wrap a lot of that all together in the title of How to Equip a Board Member. So let's just jump right into it. There are a number of stages here of equipping board members. The very first one is to start with an initial orientation. We've referenced the orientation in the previous episodes, but really you want to do this as soon as the board member is selected. I mean, if they're selected in an annual business meeting, or if the board has made the appointment, you want to be with that new board member really within the next number of days, and certainly within a couple of weeks, so that they're ready to go when they can hit the ground running with that initial orientation. Be very thorough when you're doing that orientation. Do not assume the board member knows anything. Even though they may have been around the church for a long time, you really start with the fundamentals, help them understand roles and responsibilities, talk about quite a bit of what we're talking about here in this church board track of Church University. You want to orient them to being team players. Some people are oriented that way naturally, but you want to articulate that. And then you want to reinforce the pastor's need for the board member and the board member's need for the pastor. It truly is a team effort. Second, you want to set an annual board orientation. So first, you've done the initial orientation. Now you're going to set an annual board orientation. Block time on the church calendar every year for this. Put money aside in the budget to do this. And when you get away with the board, this is what's going to happen. You're going to pray. You're going to plan, you're going to have fun, and you're going to dream. And then, as important as anything, the pastor needs to share their heart and vision for where they see the church at this point and what they see for the future. When you do these things, you're going to see amazing things happen at the retreat. And while you're there, always refresh everyone on board roles and responsibilities. Take time to be able to do this. This is an annual refreshing that happens. Continually focus on the philosophy of ministry. You remember we talked about in the first module. You want to talk about worldview, mission, core values, aims, strategies, and how all this comes together. You want to talk about who does what. And when you do this, you're continuing to reinforce that in the board members. Number 3, provide a regular board meeting equipping course. Now, I use the term course there. I'm not sure that's the exact right word, but honestly, the pastor needs to be regularly training the board. Formally on occasion, informally should be the norm. So as a matter of course, the pastor should be talking about what the board is to do, how the board is to function, and how their best functioning will help move the church forward to vision and mission. Pastor, you need to be praying for the board as a whole. Board members, you need to be praying for the pastor individually, and then everybody is praying for each other around that board table. Use tools like you're using right here, this church board track, to help advance the board as a whole. Primary equipping of the board comes from the pastor. Secondarily, can come from individual board members, but primarily the pastor is investing in equipping the board. They need to invest in the board spiritually. And what you want board members looking forward to board meetings because they know the pastor is going to invest in them. Board members are people with day jobs and families. And the more the pastor can pour into them spiritually, they're making that investment and they're equipping the board member to be the very best they can be, individually and collectively as a board. Help board members regularly understand their roles, responsibilities, and how that all fits to the vision the Lord's given the pastor and the mission of the church. Train board members to operate in their lanes. When you do that, then secondary equipping comes from other board members helping reinforce the fact that they're running in certain lanes. Build a culture of board members investing in each other as well as the pastor investing in board members. And remember, in all cases, never assume. Repeat, repeat, repeat in all your equipping you're doing on a regular basis with board members. Number 4, do one-on-one coaching. Pray intently for church board members all the time. And then individually invest in these board members. So I'm talking about aside from the board collectively, but meet with board members one-on-one. We're talking about that here in the church board track. You should meet with the board members, I would recommend, once a month. I mean, not every board member once a month, but you meet with Bill this month and Joe the next month and Bob the next month. When you do that, if you got 5 board members in a period of 5 months, you've met with all of them. So just continue. You don't have to be legalistic with it, but make it natural. Grab breakfast, grab coffee, grab lunch, catch a ball game, that kind of thing. And then in those times, you're pouring in, Pastor, you're pouring into the board member. The board member is responding, and back and forth, you're building a relationship. Now, if a board member is of the opposite sex, maybe you're a male senior pastor and you've got a female board member, then invite their spouse to be with you, or bring your spouse with them. Or better yet, do a double date. And that makes for the best of all worlds. Build a culture of loyalty when you're interacting one-on-one with board members. When you're helping coach them along in their roles, help build a culture of loyalty. And then again, never assume. While you're dealing with them one-on-one, you never want to assume that they know or remember their roles and responsibilities. Always talk about what we're to be doing as a board and how we can advance the vision and mission of the church in doing so. So what's next? Number 5, bring on a consultant. I've got to tell you, outside counsel can be extremely valuable to the pastor and the board. You want to think of it as an investment. You're not spending money, you're investing money in order to get a return. Business leaders do this all the time to help their organizations be better and their teams be better and more effective. Why not the church? The church has got the greatest mission on the planet. Why should we not invest in a consultant to help us make that mission the best it can be? Honestly, with a consultant, you gain from the best practices of larger growing churches, because that consultant is out there touching base, rubbing shoulders with these churches that are being successful to vision and mission. You're going to leverage the consultant's experience. You're going to leverage the network of the consultant. Frankly, the consultant brings horsepower to your pastor and to your board in the church. A consultant, while they do cost money, they're not cheap. You're not going to get them on a dime. They're going to be way less money than if you were to hire a full-time staff member or hire even a part-time staff member. So it is clearly worth the investment and really effective to your bottom line. The consultant is going to help you go where you want to go. And sometimes it's going to uncover things that prevents you from getting to your destination, and you want those removed. The consultant can help you do that. Frankly, there's safety for the pastor, for the board of the church in having the outside ear of the consultant. So what do we take away from these 5 things? I've got to tell you, none of these things are going to work without the pastor and the board being on their face before God and seriously in prayer on the subject of equipping the board. If you're going to equip the board, you've got to be intentional, and you need the Lord's help with it. The best equipping of board members is consistent, it's pastor-led and guided, it's spiritual and technical all at the same time. The pastor and the board can never take their eyes off the philosophy of ministry that we talked about in the first module. They've got to be focused on vision and mission. Churches that take advantage of outside counsel are going to see themselves get way further faster than those that don't. And when you do these things, you're going to watch God do amazing things with your board and your church, equipping these board members to be all they can be for the pastor and the church. How to equip the church board? You do it on a regular basis. You do one-on-one coaching. You bring on a consultant. You do an annual planning time, annual retreat. And then when you put all that together, you're going to be amazed at what God does. And I'm praying with you to this end. Make it a great one today. Thanks for hanging out with me on this video. Be blessed.